Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Megan Kraft. I'm with the Office of Alumni Relations. I would like to welcome you to this alumni talk with Rhonda Wiedenbeck, owner of Beck's Bakery. Throughout this talk, please feel free to submit any questions you have for Rhonda in the chat, and we'll try to get to all of them. Rhonda Wiedenbeck graduated from Humboldt State in 1999 with a degree in biology. She started Beck's Bakery in 2012 with a commitment to using local whole grains that they stone mill themselves in the bakery. Beck's Bakery is primarily a wholesale bakery, but they also sell their products to individuals. Amongst their products are sourdough, Moroccan millet, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Rhonda, croutons, focaccia, and crackers. Rhonda, we are so excited to have you here today to talk to us about your business. So first question, why don't you tell us about how you started your business?
All righty, well, thanks everybody. If you're not too shy, I'd love to see faces of folks. Please open your cameras so I can see faces. Yay! Awesome, thanks. Cool. It's nice to be talking to people and not names. So I thank you, Megan, for putting this together. I'm a tiny bit nervous, but I'll get over it. Oh, Pat, hi, Pat. So I've always been a food maker, and looking at Pat, I can remember teaching classes through the North Coast Co-op, and before that I was teaching classes through Pacific Flavors, the kitchen shop in Old Town. And so food has always been a big part of my life. And I got interested in bread in a big way when I started working at Cafe Brio when they first started opening. And the only bread that we made at the cafe, because it was primarily pastries, was brioche. And I was just really fascinated by this process of making brioche, and found out that they were trained through the San Francisco Baking Institute. And I had just happened to have finished time with AmeriCorps, Watershed Stewards Project, and I had 2 educational awards. So I had some credits banked to get some further education. And so I used that money to take classes at the San Francisco Baking Institute. And I learned how, I've always done some baking, but I really learned how to hone it and do it in a bigger way, because I got to work with people from all over the world, bakers all over the world. And they just really took me under their arm and helped me figure out how to do it. So so that was where kind of the beginning of it happened. And I talked about it for like 3 years, maybe even longer, about wanting to start a bakery. And finally, my dear friends from my book club were just like, you got to do this. We're going to kind of force you to do this. And all of us actually had dreams of doing different businesses. And so we just got together on a weekly basis and started talking about how do we make this come to fruition. And so in 2012, I started a Kickstarter because I needed a trailer to haul stuff for deliveries around. And so that's what I did it for. And it was so funny because I thought I was really late to the game of Kickstarters, and found out that no, I wasn't. I was pretty much on a early adopter of that. And so October of 2012 is when we opened Beck's Bakery, officially sold our first loaves there.
All right. We have a question already. So how long did it take you to reach your Kickstarter goal?
Oh boy, I think I did the 30 days one. That was the recommendation, was to just keep it as tight and concise as you could do it. So I think I did 30 days, and it wasn't a huge number. It was like $3,000 maybe, or $3,400. So it was definitely doable in that amount of time. And unexpectedly, it ended up being this great marketing piece because people shared it in the community amongst each other. And I had the experience of, you know, that first year doing deliveries and people seeing me pull up with the little red trailer and going, hey, are you the person on the Kickstarter? Is that you? And one person came up to me and just gave me a big hug, you know, thank you for doing this. So it was really, really sweet.
And then we have another question. What was the surprises you had in opening your business?
Oh dear. I'm still surprised at things that happen. I had no idea how fast I would burn through money. It was, I was not prepared for how fast that happened. And I thought I had done a really good job with my spreadsheets and just doing financial projections, but I didn't realize like there was going to be probably 60 days delay from when I first started these new accounts to when I was going to get paid. And that was a little dicey there when that happened. I was prepared. I was told it was going to take a lot of time and energy, but I had no idea how much time and energy it was going to take in the beginning, and it still does.
In hindsight, do you think you would have done anything different when you started your business?
Yeah, I would have been better financed, and I would have hired professionals instead of trying to train everybody.
All right. Well, I'm sure you learned a lot through the process.
Yes, definitely.
And then, so you use local whole grain in your baking. Why is it so important to you?
Well, I've had an interest in eating grainier, seedier bread. You know, we've got a great bread culture up here. Brio does wonderful bread, and they were the first ones to bring kind of that artisan hearth style bread to the community. And the co-op was also making pretty good bread too. They were doing primarily, at that time, they were primarily doing sandwich style loaves. And so I just really felt like there was kind of this this opportunity to do grainier, seedier breads in the hearth style, the artisan style breads. And so I was, you know, getting grain from the bulk bins at the co-op, and I had a hand cranked mill that I was using to mill that fresh. And I was really enjoying the flavors of the bread. And then a friend of mine gave me a bag of grain that was grown locally. And I made a bread that I'd been making pretty regularly with that grain. And my first bite, it just stopped me. I was just like, holy cow, is this amazing? And I wrote a letter to the name that was on the bag, and he called me like a week later, and it was John Laboito, who was just starting to grow local grains again up here. And I told him about my idea of opening a bakery and using grainier, seedier breads, and that I really wanted to use his grain that was grown in there because the flavor quality was so out of this world. It was a different flavor profile from anything I'd ever had. And so he was definitely on board with that, and we hatched the plan on that phone call to do it. And I had no idea how I was gonna. I thought he would mill the grains for me and deliver all this flour for me. I had no idea how that was gonna work. And so we ended up working out those details as time went on. And yeah, so it's gotten more and more important for me to just thinking about like community health and wanting to have a product that was really high quality and very healthy for people to be eating. And it was a little challenging because the bakery opened at the beginning of the surge of the gluten-free movement. And so I was feeling very unsure about how the community was going to take this very gluten product and eat it. But I did find that there were people who wanted 100% whole grain breads. And so we make a variety of breads. We do the breads that you guys see on the store shelves, which are, they have a percentage of whole grain in it, but they're usually mostly white bread, except for the honey whole wheat, which is 100% whole grain. Our crackers are 100% whole grain. But our other breads are just a percentage of whole grain. And we do have a line of 100% whole grain breads that we bake and sell directly out of the bakery. And we started with just a couple. Now we have 12 or 13 different types of bread that we're doing there. And so we've decided that our what we do different from everybody else is that in the bread baking community here is we are the experts at whole grains, and we know how to make them taste good, and we can make them in a healthier way. So so as you know, cardiovascular diseases are on the uprise and stuff like that, there's more and more evidence saying that you need to get your whole grains. And why not get whole grains that help support our local grain economy, are milled fresh on our stone mill at the bakery, and that are handled really well by people who've got good recipes and can make them taste pretty darn good.
So the fact that you guys stone mill your own grains there in the bakery, that's kind of a rare thing in bakeries these days. That's not something that's happening on a broad scale, is it?
Well, when we started doing it, it was pretty rare. We were one of only a few across the country that were doing that. But now it's become a thing. And there's a lot of people who are incorporating mills in their bakeries and making stone milled products with that and selling flours and stuff like that. And so there has been this resurgence of regionalized grain economies that are starting to happen. And it's still clunky in that, but you know, it used to be every community had their own mill, and they had grain that was grown locally, and it was, you know, you ate what grew local for you. And then when railroads started coming in, and more streamlined transportation started happening, farmers started, the mills, the regional mills couldn't compete with the cheaper, bigger places. And so they started to decline in that. And in fact, there was a mill in McKinleyville on Mill Creek. And there's a little waterfall there where this mill was located. And it was, I don't know, one of my customers gave me a printout of something written in a book about local history about the milling. And it was pretty fascinating because they were milling grain, and they were milling boards, wood to make, you know, for building kind of things. But that the mill is no longer in existence, but the waterfall is.
All right, and then we have a couple questions from Mark. He wants to know what type of wheat you're using, and then also, are you using any non-wheat grains?
So we are using, we buy 3 types of grains. Primarily, the one that we use the most is the hard red wheat. And we've been on a good, I think it's been about 4 or 5 years, we've been using a variety called Hollis, which is, it works really great for the farmer, and the flavor and baking qualities of it are really great for us too. We have been using our next most used grain is the rye, and this is a rye called Gazelle. And we've been using this one for about 3 years now, I think. And it has the most amazing aroma. When we take it off the mill, it smells like almost molasses. It's so yummy, the flavor. And it's funny because I hear people all the time tell me I don't like rye bread. And I'm like, you got to try this fresh stuff. It's so good. And what I'm learning too is when people tell me they don't like rye bread, I think that what they really don't like is caraway seeds. And once we kind of talk about that, you know, the caraway versus rye, and I encourage them to try it without the caraway. I mean, try the rye bread straight, you know, that not all rye bread has to have caraway in it. They're really surprised. And like one of my favorite cookies is a chocolate rye, 100% whole grain rye cookie that, who knew chocolate and rye goes together, but the Scandinavians did. And it's an amazing thing. And then the third one that we're using a lot is the soft white wheat. And that one is primarily used for, you know, quick breads. They call it a pastry flour. Pancakes, it makes such amazing pancakes. And we just started like last week using a new variety called Seahawk. And so I've sold a couple bags of flour to customers. I haven't got any feedback yet on what they think about the flavor of it, but I'm looking forward to hearing what's going on with them on that. And then for non grains, I mean, we've used buckwheat, but it wasn't locally grown buckwheat. And let me think, well, that's a grain. We've done einkorn and spelt, but they're not local. We buy bags of the wheat, the grain berries, the kernels to grind fresh to make that. And let me think, oats. We'll use oats occasionally in we have some breads that we use oats. We do have a gluten-free, I call it quote gluten-free loaf called Seed Feast, which is loaded with seeds and nuts, but it probably has like a homeopathic dose of gluten because everything in the bakery is dusted with flour.
Right, that makes sense. And we have some questions. Hollis, how do you spell that?
Hollis.
Okay. And then Mandy wants to know, can individuals come to the bakery and buy a single loaf?
Yeah, you can, but I suggest that you go online to shop becksbakery.com, and I probably should put that in the chat, or maybe you can put it in the chat, Megan. Shop becksbakery.com, and you can have access to our online shop, and then you can pick up on Tuesdays and Saturdays for our curbside pickup. Because right now we're kind of we used to be more open with people coming in, but with the whole COVID thing still going on, we've had to kind of tighten things up a bit there. So curbside works, and check out our shop becksbakery.com.
Great. And then I just have a question. I just kind of popped in my head. How do you come up with the recipes for your breads?
Oh, well, usually I have access to other people's recipes, and then we tweak them to work for us. So I don't think I've ever like completely made something up from scratch myself. I've always used another recipe that works and that I know I can tweak to work with our local ingredients or our production style. But usually I'm adjusting something. And so with my baking classes that I took at the San Francisco Baking Institute, you know, there's a few things that came from those classes that I still use in the bakery today, like the Moroccan millet. And that one I switched up where I added a portion of the white flour, I added the local grain into it.
Looks like we might have lost Rhonda. You still there, Rhonda? There she is.
There we go. I am.
All right, great.
Oh,
And then we had another question. What is your favorite bread for toast?
Um, boy, I mean, last week it was the whole wheat cranberry walnut. And maybe the week before that, it was just the plain old white sourdough. And this week it's going to be the whole wheat with buckwheat because that makes amazing toast. All of the breads, I love them toasted. Even our holiday chocolate bread for Valentine's Day is great toasted.
That's great. And then what would you say is your most popular bread that you sell?
Our sourdoughs are really popular. But our we're starting to sell more and more of our 100% whole grain breads through, directly through the bakery that you don't see in the stores. So that cranberry walnut was one of those, and the whole wheat buckwheat is going to be this Saturday's bread. We just developed a whole wheat olive bread that kind of blew people's minds, and we've only offered it. Did we offer it once? Yeah, I think we've just offered it once, and so that's going to be coming up again in the next couple of weeks. And we filled it with olives. It's an expensive little loaf to make, but it is so full of olives. And that was, we got some guidance from a customer who said, she was pregnant at the time too. And she's like, can you make me an olive bread that has lots of olives? I don't want 1 or 2 per slice. I want lots of olives. And so we're like, okay, hey, let's give it a shot. And I was just like, nobody's going to buy this. It's so expensive, but people loved it and they bought it.
Oh, that's awesome. I love olives. And then question here, what would you say is the most challenging aspect of owning and running your own business? And then what is the most rewarding?
So, managing stress, which for me translates into sleep, not getting enough sleep, has been really a tough one for me. Just learning how to, and I don't know that I've learned it yet. I don't know that I've learned to manage stress yet, but I have. In the early days, it was really frightening. Just like any mistake, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm just going to blow this whole business up and it's just going to die and that. But I've learned over time that I can make mistakes. I can even make big mistakes, and the business is surviving. So that's been helpful. COVID has been a whole new animal to deal with. We were baking 6 days a week. We're now down to 3 days a week because of trying to keep social distance between our staff members, and our restaurants had all pulled back, because we had a mix of restaurants and, delis, farmers market, and then our retail racks in the natural food stores. And farmers markets stopped because we stopped going to farmers market. So that was a big portion of our income. And then restaurants pretty much dried up. And so we lost 1/3 of our income right off the bat. And so that was pretty stressful. And the PPP loans have really saved our tail and made it possible that we could get through here. So PPP loans help me sleep now. And then so those are kind of the challenging things there. I went into the business thinking this is a slam dunk. I've got like such a good idea, and I worked out all the financials. I know this is going to be so amazing. And I'm just like surprised at how hard and how long it takes to get ahead in this. And how expensive it is too. It's just incredibly expensive. Everything it blows me away. It's just the permits, the insurance, the workers' comp, all that stuff just blows me away on how much it costs to do that. The equipment, unbelievable prices on the equipment, but you know, we're making it work, and I came, you know, I came from kind of a, not kind of, I came from a blue collar background. I did not have any entrepreneurs, any business owners, you know, in my direct purview. So I really didn't, I didn't have anybody to model this for me on how to make it work. So a lot of it was going in just like not knowing, and that's partially why it took me like 4 years to finally pull the trigger and make the thing go, because I just didn't know how to do this, and so it took time for me to develop the confidence and the wherewithal to kind of like, okay, I think I can pull this off. So so yeah, you know, that's yeah. Did you ask me about what is the most rewarding too? Yeah, okay. So the most rewarding are the people. I have, you know, because we stopped doing farmers market, we started putting attention towards curbside. And so that has been really a very sweet part that I did not expect, was getting to know my customers. Some of them I finally have figured out what their names are, and so I can I can get their names right when they show up. But that's all short-term memory stuff, and so if I haven't had enough sleep for a while, I can't, you know, they'll tell me their names 13 times, and it's just like, I recognize your face, but I don't know what your name is. And then the masks thing too throws me still, when people come up and it's like, I don't know who you are, I can't see your face. But the people part of it has been really great, and then also just the people that I get to work with on a day-to-day basis with the staffing. I've been really fortunate to have great people for my staff.
That's great. All right, so we have a series of questions here. Let's see. Oh, okay. Mark wants to know, do you do grinding for your customers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have, we've got flour you can buy by the 3-pound bag on the website. So you can get any one of those three, the soft white, hard red, or rye. We also sell the artisan baker's craft, which is the white flour that we use, which I don't think you can get in bulk bins anywhere. So, and you can find that on the shopbecksbakery.com site. We do, we can even do 25-pound bags of flour if you wanted a larger quantity. But yeah, check the website and check it out. And if you just want to try a small amount, let me know, and I can sell it to you by the pound, so you can give it a shot and try it out.
Wow, that's great. And then Michelle wants to know, she's assuming that the sourdough is mostly white flour.
Yes, the Aldergrove sourdough is, I think we put 10% of the flour is the whole grain flour.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what starter sponge do you use? Is it local?
Oh yeah. So we have, currently we keep 3 different starters. We have a white starter for the, you know, the white wheat flour. That is what we use in our Aldergrove sourdough. And that also goes into the Moroccan millet, a little bit goes in the Moroccan millet. And then we have a whole rye starter and a whole wheat starter, and those get used in our 100% whole grain breads. Our West End rye uses the whole rye starter. West End rye uses a mix of wild culture and commercial yeast. And then, let me think. And then we use, everything we do has a pre-ferment or is long fermented, or is pre-ferment and long fermented. So we definitely take the time to make the bread. This is not a quick process for us. yeah, I think that answers the question there.
All right.
Oh,
we
and
had a
you
question-
guys,
Hmm?
excuse me, sorry. I was gonna say,
Go ahead.
you are welcome to come and get a spoonful of our culture. You know, I give it away for free for customers to just, all they have to do is ask for it, and I'll give you a spoonful of it, and away you go on it. And I did recently, maybe it was 2 years ago, kind of redo our white culture, where I went out and I collected I collected huckleberries and wild flowers, and what else did I put in there? Put in a bunch of wild plants and created a new starter off of that, because I figured, you know what, these are organisms that live here already and are adapted to living here, and let's capture some of them and see what we can do. And it only took like 5 days before I started getting bubbles in the culture, and then within 2 weeks we were able to make bread with it, and then it took another maybe after a month is when we were able to roll it into our production schedule. And so I just noticed that our culture had started to have a little bit of a bitter tang in it, and I was like, oh, I wonder if we could do better. So I went out and did that.
Oh, that's really cool. And then we have a question about CSB, community supported bakeries. Is it like CSA, community supported agriculture, where members pay a fee and get fresh product every week?
Yeah. Well, we have been doing, we started that with last year. We started it with Shake Fork. And they had a CSA, and we were an add-on to that. And then also Ed from Earthly Edibles. We've got on his. I'm hoping to get on one more CSA this year, and another farm partnership. And we've been talking about trying to do something just directly out of the bakery without having a partnership. But the idea is that you would commit to buying bread on a weekly basis for a time period. You would pay up front. That way we knew exactly how much we needed to make and who we were making it for. And it just really helps a lot for us just to know we're good, you know, we got income coming to this point. And then for waste, you know, there's a lot of waste in this business, and I really tried my best to reduce waste as best as possible. But you know, sometimes you make more bread than people want to buy, and that's kind of a drag. Hi there, little one.
And then we have another question here. Did you hire a kitchen manager? Any insights in that?
Did I hire a kitchen? I'm the kitchen manager. I have a production manager. I guess I'm the general manager. But one of my staff members, he's kind of taken a lot of the day-to-day process off of my hands, so I can concentrate more on business development stuff. But with the whole COVID thing, it's just shifted. You know, this 2020 was just a year in flexibility and flux, and just figure out how to keep things going, kind of thing. So we've got some new plans coming up here that we're working on. I can talk more about that later.
All right. Yeah. And how did you develop your passion for baking?
Well, any job I ever had, I tried to feed people. And I kind of thought that was just a fun hobby, and but it became something where it's like, no, I just really need to feed people. I grew up with a mom that was very experimental in the kitchen, and so I had that great role model of just being fearless and trying stuff out in the kitchen. And so I think it's a combination of having her there. I'm a really good eater. I love to eat food. And I'm fortunate to surround myself with people who love to eat food. So I tend to have a captive audience that way. and I kept on, I knew I wanted to have some kind of a business, and I kept on kind of like spiraling in on it, I didn't, for a while, I did a little catering business for friends, and and I realized that I didn't like that the time pressure on there, and I thought bread would be easier to do because you could make it ahead, and it doesn't have to be served right away, and it would be good. And so my catering stuff started. I was actually, it was called the Dinners to Go service, and I would put out a menu every week, and then people would sign up for it, and we would meet at the Safeway parking lot, and I'd have all this food. I'd have these boxes in the back of my car, and people would all pull up at the parking lot at the same time, and I'd start passing out boxes, and they'd be handing me money, and people would be going, "What the heck is going on?" And it was fine. The health department said it was fine as long as they were my friends, but then it started becoming friends of friends, and so I was like, "Oh, I got to stop this. This is not working. This is not working anymore." But I discovered that I was like developing menus around the bread, and I was like, maybe I should just kind of go in that direction of the bread. So yeah, if I didn't find bread, I would have found something else to do.
All right. And then here's a very HSU alumni related. How do you feel that Humboldt State prepared you for this career?
Yeah, well, I like this question a lot. So I went there for, the science degree, and I got to learn. So I think HSU prepared me in one great way, was like learning how to use spreadsheets, because we did a lot of data analysis stuff on spreadsheets in the good old days. And so when I went to do business consulting with the Small Business Development Center, Janet DePace, who's one of the lead business counselors there, she was my counselor, and her specialty was finance. And she was blown away on how well I could work a spreadsheet. And we were teaching each other little tricks about spreadsheets there. She was just like, "Dang, Excel pretty good. Do you know this little trick here?" And it's just like, that's awesome. So so having a comfort around that was really great. And then just, I took a lot of biology and chemistry classes, and there's definitely chemistry involved in baking, and maintaining and understanding the life cycle of a sourdough culture as a biological process. And yeah, yeast is, a biological product that you need to understand. And you don't have to have a degree to do this stuff, but boy, it helps me understand it on a different level. And so that we are able to troubleshoot in a way where I can use that educational aspect, the education I got at HSU, for that. And then on like a philosophical level, Humboldt State is a unique culture there of, allowing people to be who you are and let your freak flag fly. And and I was just like, I like bread, I like food, I like, to DIY stuff. And so I felt like I was pretty comfortable in my passion that way, that I could, that I could start a gluten bakery in the middle of a gluten-free, culture kind of thing going on. So yeah, and I took a ton of math and statistics at HSU, and I wish that had served me better because I can't remember much of it. But it probably helped my thinking process too, to do that stuff there.
And then what kind of advice do you have for someone who is thinking of starting their own business?
Do I ever have some advice? You're never going to be fully prepared to do it. Don't wait until you have all the answers. If I waited for half the things I do until I had all the answers, I would never get off the ground and do them. But with that said, you know, do have a framework, do some financial projections, you know, have a pretty good idea that it has potential to work. And if you don't know how to do that, there's so many great resources to use locally. There's the SBDC has been instrumental. They're so helpful and so wonderful. And they have great classes and great support there. Also, I've been fortunate to be able to work with HSU business classes. I think I've worked with 3 or 4 classes, maybe 3 classes, 3 classes, and I've also had interns, business interns, which they help me to, they stretch me a lot, you know, and they keep me innovating to have the HSU students. So, and then also I feel like, you know, City of Arcata, I'm out of the Food Works building, which is managed by the City of Arcata. And they've really got a great little setup here where you can have affordable kitchen space with a lot of support. And that has been really helpful to have that. So there's lots of resources out there. Don't wait till you have it all dialed in and exactly perfect, because that's never, it's going to change the second you start doing it. Something's going to change on there. But do a bit of homework. You know, you need to go in there with some confidence, like this is probably a good idea. And surround yourself with people who want to see you succeed too. That's really been helpful.
That's good advice. And then Rhonda, your business is going to be changing a little bit soon. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So we have been talking for about the last 9 months. We're exploring the idea of converting Beck's Bakery into a worker owner cooperative. And it's been quite a process. We're working with SBDC, the Small Business Development Center, and we're working with Cooperation Humboldt. They've been really supportive of it. We have a steering committee made up of 2 community members and our staff that's interested in converting to the cooperative. So right now we're, you know, kind of learning democratic processes, and we've just spent the last 3 months going over a whole what do we call it? Just a whole decision-making tree of how we're going to deciding how we're going to decide. And that's been a really fascinating process to do that. Our next steps with that are to get a financial evaluation to see if we have the income to support added worker owners on it right now. We're going to be working with an organization called Project Equity, and they're going to do a pretty detailed analysis, financial analysis, to see if we're at a financial state that we can do that, and if not, what we need to do to get to there. So that's pretty exciting to do that. I really look forward to that, of having more input from my staff, partly because it's a pretty lonely job to be the business owner and trying to make the decisions and trying to make things come together. And the other part is that I just feel like my staff has been so instrumental in making sure this bakery survived. They've sacrificed, you know, good paying jobs because we haven't necessarily been that lucrative to pay great wages. We're getting better, but it's still not that not that great that way. So I feel like it's a way to show that that I support, you know, the efforts that they put into the bakery. And I feel like more minds involved in it are really going to make a difference in how we move into the future. So we've been talking about, you know, like I said early in the conversation, that we realize that our what we bring to the table is that we are the, you know, the local experts in whole grains and how to cook with them and how to use them. And we have like a huge variety of whole grain breads and products that we make. And so we're thinking that that's going to be probably where we're going to steer more towards, is really focusing on what we are the experts at. There's plenty of other great bakeries that do great things with the white bread kind of thing, but we're the ones who really know how to handle that whole grain stuff there. So yeah, that's coming. You know, it's probably going to be another year before anything really happens with that, but that's what's on the horizon. If we can pull that off.
And what do your employees think about this?
All of them are very on board, except for one. She's got her own business, and she works part-time with me. And so she's just like, yeah, no, I've got one business. I don't need another one. But it's been really fun to see the development of my staff members, you know, because with the top-down kind of structure of typical businesses, they don't really get to shine much. And so this has really opened things up a lot, where they're really trying, they're able to find things that they're really good at, and they're able to contribute their expertise or their passion to it. And so, and then for me, it's just been really sweet to let go of a bunch of things that I was trying to manage and maybe not manage so well. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, so we have a few more questions.
Okay.
Mark wants to know if you're okay with sharing how much in sales and in general terms do you do?
Oh gosh, yeah, it's you know, it's been so topsy-turvy since COVID that I'm going to pass on that one, because I don't think I can answer that one without looking at my spreadsheets.
Right. And then he wanted to know if you're doing bread costing with the spreadsheet.
Yeah, I'm actually using a software called Airtable. It's an app that I've found online. My friends who are in the tech world call it, what do they call it? Database Lite. And so, so it's a database system that is, I guess, much more easier to approach, but it was sure hard to figure it out. But yeah, we have, it's pretty amazing and detailed, the info that we have on there. And then like working with the, so we know, you know, the cost of ingredients per loaf. And I got to work with HSU students who helped me figure out labor costs, you know, for each item. I think, what did we call that? There was a name, ABC. Gosh, I can't remember what the process. I didn't hear you, Mark.
I'm currently a culinary student down here in the Oxnard area, and in the current class is restaurant management. And we had to do a costing of all our menu items for our fictitious restaurant. And
Gotcha.
he's really saying that a lot of places, most business or in the hospital, in the restaurants, don't do a unit costing for their food. And he says that makes or breaks it right there. If you know, he was showing examples where high-end restaurants were losing almost $10 per item. Every time they sold it, they lose $10 for an appetizer.
Wow.
And, he broke it down and showed you why they did the whole thing, and it was just really doing it. So I was kind of curious. You got me excited, saying, "Yes, you are doing it from HSU." So
Yeah,
really
no,
cool.
and it's kind of a source of frustration when I'm trying to work with a new customer and they're asking about pricing and they're just like, holy crap, you guys are so much more expensive than anybody else. And I find out that the way they're pricing, you know, whatever their product, a burger, is to figure out how much the ingredients cost and multiply it by 4. And I'm like, what? What?
He talked a bit about that. I mean, he says there's the food cost, there's the labor cost, and there's the overhead cost.
Yeah.
And basically handle so you figure out what your food cost was and your labor cost is, and that's, you know, you got to sit down and figure it all out. And then he says, then you do a multiplying factor for your overhead is at least 3. And then that gives you your ballpark to start working with the idea of what you can do. I mean, you got to do what your market demands. You got to do it. So it's quite, you know, it's quite involved, and it's often overlooked. So I was excited to hear it, because I'm going to tell him that and just, you know, pass on the good news. Other people are doing it too. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's see, Michelle has a question. Any advice for home bakers who want to grind their own grains? She said she just bought her own mill.
Oh, cool. So I started with a little a KitchenAid grinder attachment that went onto my KitchenAid, and that worked great as a starter point there. I would they do get a little warm, so if you can kind of maybe don't do big batches, just do what you need for your recipe. I find too, if you're using the local grains, they are sometimes a little trickier because they don't have the so what a big mill will do is they will mix different grains together to get a consistent protein content, a consistent mixing quality, consistent fermentation quality, and when you're getting the bulk local grains, you know, from the bulk bins, you're going to get a lot of fluctuation from year to year and from field to field and from variety to variety. And so what I find works really helpful is just to, you know, if it is maybe go about half of your flour, use the whole grain until you kind of get a feel of what it's like. And then you can start increasing your whole grain and taking out your white flour. And that way you can learn what's happening there. And then also there's a taste thing where you have to develop a taste for the flavor. And I think it takes for adults like between 17 and 25 tastes before you start to like something brand new. And I have people who are just like, no, I don't want to eat whole grains because I don't think they taste good. And it's like, you just have to keep on tasting it. And so if you're adding it into your white bread, which people are going to be jazzed about, you can gradually increase that and they'll never know. And and get them to like it that way. And then there's always, you know, make crackers with it, make whole grain pancakes. Some of the best pancakes I've ever had was with the soft white wheat. And I mean, I used to have a little beginning of the year pancake breakfast with my neighbors, and I had my little grain hand crank grain mill out on the front porch and let the kids grind the grain, and then we made pancakes with it. And you know, it was so wonderful, so wonderful. People were blown away that it was 100% whole grain pancakes. Yeah. And then come and get some starter.
All right. And then Tony has a question. Do you do anything with coconut flour? The reason he's asking is, let's see, he finally made some using pulp left over from making fresh coconut. It's kind of a big lug, and he was proud of himself with the flour.
Huh. I have not used coconut flour. that might be a good question for one of the gluten-free bakery people who are doing that kind of stuff. I'm not familiar with using coconut flour.
All right. Are there any other questions? If you have any other questions for Rhonda, feel free to put them in the chat. Is there anything else that you would like to say, Rhonda?
Yeah, sure. We do a weekly newsletter called the Bread Letter, and it's just the primary focus of it is just to inform people what our new bread of the week is, and it's always 100% whole grain bread. And sometimes if I'm feeling like I have time, I will write a little something about what's going on with the farmers, or like, you know, I learned about this food taste thing that it takes 25 tastes for adults to like a certain kind of food. You know, I'll do a little bit there, but mostly it's just information about the bread of the week. And you can sign up for it on the website. I have pop-ups that show up where you can sign up and get on it. And if it's not your thing, I'm not offended at all if you just unsubscribe. That's a good thing, to unsubscribe.
All right. Well, doesn't look like we have any more questions. Ron, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Just wanted to let everyone know that Beck's Bakery is a member of the Forever Humboldt Alumni Owned Business Directory, which you can find at forever.humboldt.edu. If you are an alumni who owns their own business, or you know someone who does, please go to the directory and submit your business, or let the alumni you're thinking of know, so they can get their business up on the directory as well. So thanks again, Rhonda. It was a pleasure talking to you, and thank you for everyone who came and attended. This was really great. So, everyone.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.